I'm going to be summarizing chapter 2 and then the beginning of chapter 3. It starts off by talking about how the rape of enslaved Black women actually led to shaping their social status even after slavery had ended. And this is seen today by looking at how Black women are portrayed on TV most of the time, and they're perceived by American society as fallen women with little value. The problem of this is perpetuated when white feminists minimize the oppression of Black women. And in American society, if a white woman is raped by a Black man, it is seen as more important than if thousands of Black women were to be raped by one white man. And then when slavery ended, Black men and women they welcomed their newly acquired freedom and used this to express their sexuality. But then this ended up only enforcing the ideas that whites had been making up about Black women. And Black women were trying to adopt the behaviors of white women, but were still discriminated against. And people were even mocking them for trying to fit in, telling them that they would never be worthy in the eyes of the public. Articles were coming out against Black women, trying to maintain the separation of races. It was argued that Black women attract sexual abuse because of their lack of morals, and young Black girls were always encouraged to avoid eye contact with white men whenever possible. Black women were abused by employers and threatened to be fired unless they agreed to this abuse. A popular myth was that all Black women were eager for sexual exploits, and then many practices reinforced this myth, such as laws against intermarriage, denial of the title Miss or Mrs. to any Black women, and the refusal to let Black women customers try on clothes before making a purchase. And then this all was a method of social control. Interracial marriages were tolerated during slavery because numbers were low. However, now that numbers were rising, they posed a threat to white supremacy. And this quote really just sat with me and shocked me. But it said, "Scholars have argued that since white men have always had free, unlimited access to the bodies of Black women, they have seen no need to legitimize these relationships by marriage." And that was just whoa, oh my gosh. So false ideas of Black women continued to be represented in TV and American society in general. The independent role that Black women were expected to play both in the labor force and in the family was automatically perceived as unladylike. Roles of women in general were being questioned. To employ a woman in other ways would endanger not only her essential female qualities, but also her sanity, her health, and even her life, which is insane. Pressure was not only put on men, and that no real man could remain in a household where he was not the sole boss. Some Black women were eager to accept the matriarchy theory, though, because it seemed like this was a recognition for their work and it was more positive than what they had been referred to before. And this shows that how having Black women adopt this idea was actually a form of control by whites, because it kept Black women inferior still. And it says the Sappher, I think that's how you say it, image of Black women was made popular in movies and radio in the 1930s and 40s. She was depicted as iron-willed, effectual, and treacherous towards Black men. And this led to many Black women suppressing their feelings out of fear of being regarded as Sapphirs. And that was basically chapter 2. Just a little bit at the beginning of chapter 3. White men were starting to be recognized as the enemy, and Black men were able to join this and take no blame for their own sexism. And women were joining the workforce, but in more domestic jobs, which in society were not seen as real or meaningful. Men saw their work as a way to fulfill and confirm their masculine power. And then these are a couple quotes that I'm going to end with in the beginning of chapter 3 that I just thought were kind of interesting. It says, "Black men who express the great hostility towards the white male power are often eager to gain access to that power." And then it argues, we can fix this by proving ourselves with healthy African identities and embracing a value system that knows of no separation. So that's the beginning of chapter 3. For my discussion questions, I just have 2. I wanted to go back to a couple quotes that I went over. So for the first one, going back to the quote, it's on page 78. "To employ a woman in other ways would endanger not only her essential female qualities, but also her sanity, her health, and even her life. So how are women in today's society oppressed in ways that her female qualities are seen as endangered? Do you think that things have gotten better or just taken a new form?" And then my second question is going back to the quote that I just said at the end of chapter 3, or the beginning of chapter 3. "Many Black men who express the great hostility towards the white male power structure are often eager to gain access to that power." And that's on page 94. So I wanted to ask, do you guys agree with this? Do you think this is true in all cases? And do you think this argument could be harmful at all towards the movement? And that's it.